Okay. It is about 8:32, and it is Tuesday, February the 12th, 2020, and I want to welcome each of you to 6 lectures, this being the first one of Introduction to Criminal Law. And some of you already know me, and I'm going to spend some time tonight going over some details of what this whole course is all about, how it's going to work. The first thing I do want to remind people at the very beginning is that 6 weeks goes very fast. It's actually 5.5 because this class actually ends in March. It's March, I think, the 14th. But anyway, I'll be showing you that. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so one of the first things that I will be doing is making you familiar with the course homepage. The homepage, you'll find my instructor information. You'll see my phone number. Those students who know me from other classes will know that when I say students can feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. It means what it says. I'm probably one of the most accessible professors that students have. I already got some text messages from a few students today, and I responded to them real quick. So very important that you text me or email me. Now, if it's something real urgent and you need me to know it, emailing me is the slowest way to do it. Texting me or calling me at this number here. And whenever you text me, please make sure you indicate your name, make sure you indicate what course you're in, and then what the question is that you have in the text. Because sometimes I will call you back, and sometimes I will respond back to you with a text. All right? So, but again, I repeat, if you send me these messages 25th hour of the day, I won't get them. Rubrics, you see how that's highlighted, are very, very, very important in this course. It's important for you to be aware that if you want to maximize your grade in this course and in all the courses that I teach, rubrics. Follow the rubric. Use the rubric as a checklist to make sure that you did everything right. And then APA, you're going to learn that I'm very dogmatic about APA. Citations in the body primarily, and I don't mean a citation, but citations throughout the paper. Then the purpose for citations, so that you understand it, is to provide information to support your statements that are included in your papers. So it's very, very, very important that you do that. Very important. And then the other thing that I want to say about citations is make sure that they're done properly. There's going to be enough resources that I will share with you today that you'll be able to utilize yourself to get help with APA, including tutoring if you need it. But it's very, very, very important. So it's citations in the body, references at the end. Roman 12 should be the font size, should be double spaced, not single spaced. Should be a cover page, properly formatted, as well, using your tools that you have to format your with the running head, and you know what that is all about. And then critical thinking. I will be talking about these issues relating to critical thinking. Critical thinking is so, so, so important. One of the most important things I think that you will need to learn how to do. I'm a natural critical thinker because I went to law school. You go to law school, you become a natural critical thinker, and so that's one of the things that I always remind students about, being able to get that done. And then, so I'm going to talk about the transferable skills in a little bit. All these are very important in the assignments. In addition, you see me repeating again, you're required to conduct research for all papers. That means the sole source of your papers should not be the textbook. You'll lose 2 points, because the idea is we want to teach you how to find credible resources. We'll talk about that. And then here's the statement again about APA, and then tells you about the cover sheet part. And then these are some helpful resources that you can take time to look at on your own. And then about tutoring assistance. You can get tutoring to help you even if you're doing well, but make sure that you're using proper resources. There's some articles here to help you with your writing beyond the textbook. If you click on these, you can download these for how to cite things in your papers. Analytical tips for criminal justice students. This gets towards the critical thinking. Information literacy, being able to use credible resources and information. Now, you're going to discover that one of the things that I do is I run my papers through Grammarly. Each of you have a Grammarly account that the school has included, and you can find that under the resources tab, which I'll be sharing with you in just a few minutes. In addition to that, I want to warn you, sources like Wikipedia will not be allowed. Also, do not use paper mills for your written assignments. They will show up in Grammarly, and then I will report them to the deans. And they have a committee that after so many violations, then you're violating the academic integrity policy, and you can get Fs and possibly be suspended, be terminated from the school. One of the ones that I've run across, and a popular one, is Course Hero. There are people who use Course Hero for completing their written assignments. That's a no-no. Don't do that, because you're taking materials that other people have posted up there to utilize for your assignments. If you do, I will be able to discover it, and it won't be such a good thing. References, dealing with APA as well. You don't have to worry about this annotated bibliography. And then there's a video here to help you with critical thinking. You could just take this copy and paste it and put it in your browser, and you can take a look at that. The final thing in this section is rubrics are located in each written assignment. Except the discussion post, there is a discussion rubric that is so important. And what I will say to you is you can maximize your grades with discussion posts by submitting them on time and having good content in the post itself. And a lot of students run into problems with that because of the fact that they don't, they make little short one-liners. Not going to get it. You're going to have to show that you actually put some thought into completing your discussion post. I do encourage completing more than one reply post. You won't get additional points, but what you will get is your discussion forum will be better, because then you will be communicating with each other on the various issues of each weekly discussion. This is a reminder, the live classroom session, which at the top gives the class. Somebody asked, how do you get to the live lecture? Those of you who are here already know this. This is the same one that's used in every class that I teach. And you can copy and paste it and put in your browser and it'll lead you here. Tells you about tonight. The live lecture will go longer in 10 o'clock and maybe even a little longer because of something that some of you will already know about me. And it's already been quoted by a student about my motto. You'll understand why when I talk about that a little later. So starting today, however, do not get accustomed to Wednesday open houses or Wednesday lectures. I normally do this course on Tuesday nights, but because the course didn't start until today, today is for week 1. But starting next week, Tuesday, your lectures will take place 8:30 to 9:30. You have to attend the live lectures or listen to the archive. A few students have already asked me, is this archived? Well, the answer is yes. Of course, the only way you know that if you listen to the lecture that is archived. In addition to the point that the link for the live lecture is not the same as the link to get to the live classroom. So the recording that comes out is actually converted from WebEx into YouTube, and then I upload it so that I'll send you a link, and then a link will be posted up under recordings. See the section for recordings? Right now there's none under there. After tonight, there will be week 1 open house, and it'll give a link. I will also simultaneously email that to you. So I will be doing that tonight after we complete. So now let's take a look at some of these course announcements dealing with the writing process. I'll let you go over that on your own. But here again is about APA, where I tell you there's a guide. Now, I'm going to click on this for a minute and show you. And it's going to show you what that is. And it's an online library, and it helps you deal with a template, other tools that you need to do APA and do well. Then there is a short video that you can look at as well. Then there are other bits of information. This whole section is just about APA. It tells you to get started. If you clicked on this, it opens up more information. Then preventing plagiarism tells you how not to do that, because when I run your papers through Grammarly, I'm going to tell you that if you have a high percentage of material from the sources that you found doing research and you don't have enough critical thinking to offset it, you're going to get hit with plagiarism, even if you cite the sources. Then there's some videos, everything here, in-text citations, very important, references, and it takes you to that. Let me go back to this. So you got your references, your noodle tools, which tell you how to format, annotated bibliography. You don't have to worry about abstracts and appendices. Writing in the APA style, very important and helps you. So we have a resource that helps that, and so you're going to see a whole lot about APA because it's so important in terms of getting your assignments done. All right. So now let's take a look at the welcome announcement, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time with because you should have looked at it already. Tells you a little bit about me, a little first paragraph. See all these things that are highlighted? Pay close attention to them and abide by what they say in the paragraphs. I'm not going to go over each of them. So you're dealing with the announcement, the student lounge, which many of you have already seen the student lounge because it gives a little bit about me as well. There's a huge picture. and some more stuff, then we ask that you post one during week 1 so that we can get to know each other. Your course mail is where you'll find information that's personal communications, and then you reply to my welcome message, which several of you already done to let me know that you are able to get into the course. And so pay attention to the course mail. We use that a lot. Now, you have your what we call S mail, which is your student mail. That's used sometimes. But and then I have an email outside of the course mail that you can communicate with. But this is all about what's in this course. The syllabus, we're going to go over that in just a few minutes. Course calendar, very important. That's where you can find information. And then general course questions. You can post that, general course questions, and anyone can answer it, including you guys. Where do you find that? Well, you can go under discussions, click on that, and see here's the student lounge right here. And you will see in the student lounge, where students have posted information about themselves, and then you will see everybody who's posted. So you can see the names of people. Then you can see this is my welcome post that I was talking about early, and you take a time to look at that, and then other students who have responded to that as well. But what I was going to tell you is that under that same section here, under discussions, you have student lounge, then you have general course questions. And this is what I was talking about a few minutes ago. You can post that and everybody can see it. And then each week your discussion posts are in here as well. All right. Go back to the course homepage. All right, let's go back to okay, so then resources tab. Now the resources tab, I kind of gave you some information there. Let me show you the resources tab. It's found in the upper right hand corner. You can click on that and you will see, matter of fact, we'll be using this tonight for this video. But there are a lot of resources. APA, once again, Grammarly. Remember I talked about Grammarly. Make sure when you use your Grammarly that you check the plagiarism box so that you can check all papers that I grade. I run through Grammarly. Okay, and then if you clicked on Grammarly, it tells you how to create your own account. Don't use the one that's online outside of class. You want to use this one for all your classes, and tells you how to sign up, and then it'll tell you make sure you follow these instructions. There's a code, but you won't be using that code unless if you registered using your Rasmussen student mail, you won't need to enter the access code. All right, because it already recognizes to give you that. There are students who have gone out and they didn't realize it and they paid for it, but you don't want to do that. It gets kind of expensive. So anyway, then you got your Noodle Tools guide, which you have an account to be able to help you, and that is how to plug in citations and references as well. There's a video in here that explains to you how everything works. So you have plenty of resources and no excuse for not to follow that. And then there's other things here. Make an appointment with a librarian as well. So now one of the things that you'll discover under here is the transferable skills. So now let's take a few minutes and talk about these transferable skills for a minute here. Let me move this again. Okay, so what are the transferable skills? These are skills that we've identified that employers will be looking for potential employees. And in your assignments, you will actually be putting into play each of these 6 transferable skills. And so we are very, very serious about this. That explains why assignments are written the way that they are. So let's talk about the first 3. Now, there's something about the first 3 that you should be aware of. The first 3 transferable skills relate to self-development. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. So critical thinking, this is the school's definition. Improving thinking, problem solving, creativity by applying intellectual standards such as clarity, precision, logic, and reflection. We want to see that you use that good old gray matter that you have between your ears in terms of the written assignments that you do. We also want to make sure that you do that in discussion posts. All your written assignments, you should be able to do that. Why? Because what's going to happen is you're going to be called upon to complete projects when you leave school, and your employers are going to want you to be able to demonstrate the fact that you have knowledge in critical thinking. There is a course that many of you will be taking, or some may have taken it already, relating to this particular issue, because it is so important. We don't want you to be a bunch of copiers and pasters. We want you to be able to analyze and take materials and be able to make them your own. Digital fluency. Everything is digital these days. Employing and understanding how the tools to operate, such as the Blackboard class, such as the WebEx, such as Word documents. You will discover that your written assignments should not be written in PDF, should not be submitted in PDF. They should be submitted in Word. And that instruction is given in the module in itself. And inevitably, there are students that try to submit PDF. The reason why we don't want PDF documents is because we can't edit them. I can't run it through Grammarly because it's already set. And so we want to make sure that we can, as professors, be able to make changes. Which brings me to the next topic. Oh, and by the way, your textbooks and everything. When I came out of law school 43 years ago, coming up in June, there was no such thing. But now everything is digital. I even have my phone here. This is an Android. Most of you probably don't use Androids, but use iPhones. But anyway, on this phone itself, that's my wife there. Let's see, you can see now on this page, I have all these apps. One of the apps that I have is called, what's it called? Bookshelf. And if I click on Bookshelf, well, there she is again. Bookshelf, what it does is it opens up, you can just barely see it now, all of my textbooks. So I can see all of my titles. So the one for this course, I have it, Introduction to Criminal Law. And I have my textbook right here that I have a chance to read it. It's setting up, there we go. And I can open it. And then I can get started. I can look at everything that I want to look at in the textbook right here on my phone. You can do the same thing. But what I'm saying to you is that this is something that's really important that didn't exist, and now I'm pretty good at it. Able to use spreadsheets, and you won't be using a whole lot of that type of stuff in these classes. Some other classes you will have to learn how to utilize those spreadsheets. And then Finally, the next one for self-development is information literacy. Being able to find information that's credible. One of the resources that you never use to cite anything, anywhere, any place, you will get dinged and lose points is Wikipedia. And the reason is because it is a word-based website. People can go in and change the material, and it's not credible. But there are many others. But if you remember what I told you earlier, you got these paper mills, and Course Hero is one of them. Now, you could use Course Hero for other things, but you cannot, I repeat, you cannot, and I don't recommend using it to take sections to use in your papers and try to adopt them as your own. The language will bust you out every time when I run it through Grammarly, and when I click on that plagiarism box, it will get you in trouble and cause you to lose points. So these first three are, if you pay attention, are for the individual. The second three is for interaction between others. First one is communication. Employers are looking for good communicators in written, reading, and oral communication, and understanding nonverbal language, such as, you know, when you see somebody go this way, generally that means no, that's universal. Up and down generally means yes. You know, when a person does this, usually they're saying, I don't know. But there are other things. You have to be able to understand these things, particularly if you're going to be in law enforcement. But you're going to do that if you're in corrections as well, and in other areas in the criminal justice area. So communication is so important. Diversity. People are going to be from all backgrounds. They're going to be different from you. They're going to be different in terms of sexual preference. They're going to be different in terms of race, nationality, religious beliefs. And you have to recognize and appreciate the fact that we operate on a diverse basis. At this school, we focus on diversity. In fact, I'm on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee that the faculty has, and we don't like to see people disrespect people because they're different or because they may not even agree with them. So when you're responding to discussion posts, don't shoot somebody down. You can disagree with them. Oh, I'll do that in a minute. But operate and understand, and operate empathetically. That's how I do with all of my students. If I see you do something, though, like I've already talked about Course Hero, and someone turns around and uses that, it ruffles my feathers, because then that means you're trying to get over on me. Yeah, I have a bunch of students, but when I grade these papers, I read them. I read them very fast, and I know what I'm looking for, and I will grade them accordingly using the rubric. So you're going to work with people from various backgrounds, perspectives, and you're going to work on teams. You're going to work with people in the criminal justice area that are scientific people. You're going to work with lawyers, prosecutors, and defense attorneys. You're going to work with people, like I said, who have different parts of the puzzle of an investigation that you might be working on. So diversity and teamwork is so important. Ethics and professional responsibility. I cannot stress the importance of these, especially with dealing with ethics. I used to teach ethics in criminal justice, and I always remind students that one of the reasons why, for example, law enforcement has a bad reputation is because of some unethical practices, like this code of silence. It can end up putting you in a position where you can end up losing your job, and or you can end up behind bars. Imagine you spend your career as a law enforcement officer and you put people behind bars and you end up with them. Not a good thing. Professional responsibility, there are codes of conduct for every area. As lawyers, we had a canon or code that even said we should not even give the appearance of impropriety, even if something wasn't improper. And so there are all professions that have codes of conduct, whether you're dealing with the forensics aspects of it, with your probation, parole, correction officers. You can make the whole gamut of dealing with criminal justice itself. So it's important that you apply these. And then you can take a look and you can learn more about transferable skills by going here. But be aware that all of your assignments will give you a chance to exercise using all of these skills. And so that's what I want to say about transferable skills. All right. Now, let's go back before we move on. And we're going to talk about the college academic integrity. Now, I'm going to take this my headset off because you won't be able to hear the video. Let's see. I might have it. Let's see. Do I have it on? If I have it on the course homepage, then you will be able to see. Let's see if I have it on the course homepage. I don't think in this class that I had it as an announcement. I do not. No, because I had it in other classes. I meant to put it in here. But anyway, let's take a few minutes and let's take a look at this video. It's done by some student tutors as well as John Malatic, who was the dean at the Romeoville campus when for a while, and now he's in Rockford. But he deals with the issue of the learning center coordinators, so forth. So let's take this 4-minute video.
What is academic integrity? Academic integrity is making decisions in your academic life that are based on honesty, trust, fairness, responsibility, and respect. This means being honest in the work you do, while respecting the work that others do. So what is cheating? Cheating means distributing or receiving answers or information by any means other than those expressly permitted by an assignment's requirement or an instructor. Some examples of cheating include asking fellow students for answers or copying answers during a test, using notes, devices, or materials during a test that your instructor has not approved, purchasing papers from websites or other sources, copying your classmate's work, assisting a classmate in misconduct, and other violations as noted in the academic integrity policy that can be found in all course syllabi. Always ask your professor if it's okay to use notes during a test or to work together with classmates on an assignment or quiz. Now let's talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism means using another individual's work without giving them credit or taking another person's work and claiming it as your work. Some examples of plagiarism are turning in an assignment that someone else wrote, copying words or ideas from someone else. This can be a library resource, course textbook, internet resource, or other material without giving the original creator credit. Failing to put quoted works in quotation marks, or using someone else's ideas in your essays, but changing a few of the words to make it sound like the words are your own. Plagiarism is not just about written words and ideas. It's possible to plagiarize images, graphs, coding, or video as well. So how can you avoid plagiarism? Cite your sources, both in the body of your paper as in-text citations and on your references page. Whenever you want to use words, images, media, or ideas that were created by another person, you should cite that person appropriately as the source of that information.
But how does academic integrity relate to the work world? Isn't it just a college thing?
No. Integrity in the workplace starts with good practices and skills built while you are a student. Would you turn in a project document to your manager as your own when someone else wrote it? Not if you want to keep your job. Individuals can be reprimanded or even fired from their job for plagiarism. Following academic integrity guidelines while you are in school builds those skills and ethical practices that carry through to the workforce.
Okay, I understand how they're connected, but what do I do if I need more help?
If you have questions on the academic integrity policy, consult your course syllabus, talk with your instructor or dean, and if you need assistance with APA citation style or how to avoid plagiarism, contact the Rasmussen library team through our live chat or schedule a research appointment on our library website or through the resources tab of your course. If you would like APA tutoring, schedule an appointment with one of our peer tutors on the course resources tab.
Okay, let me put my headphones back in. So you see, I mean about citing your sources, how important it is to cite your sources as well. And then, you know, he showed the library and the guides. Okay, look, there are guides for the School of Justice Studies, and you go right here. And it tells you about research, database, writing help. There's that APA thing again. Let me see. If you click on that, you'll see something you should already have seen. See that? It gives you some information about APA. Tells you about tutoring, and it tells you about the courses that are offered here. And then you can find out information about various webinars that will help you, that the Library and Learning Center put together on various topics. APA, you see that they're big on it. Online research, and also, now, one of the things that I do want to show you is take you back to the one that you saw a few minutes ago. Let's go back, and it is, this tells you who your librarian and all of those different people are. But I'm trying to find it. Where is it? It is, okay, there it is. The Library and Learning Center. And you can, if you hover over these, it tells you APA, tutoring, webinar, YouTube, articles, technical support, a new student guide, writing guide, finding images, Noodle tools, and the whole thing goes on. And it just tells you everything. So the point of the matter is that the resource tab contains a lot of good information that will be very helpful to you as you go through this school, not just this course. All right, so back to this, your report tab, that's how you see your grade book. I don't use that. I have another way of doing it. And then it tells you some more stuff that I've already talked about. And then this reminds you about the live lecture that's taking place tonight. And then letting you know starting next week, beginning next week, weeks 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6 will be every Tuesday, beginning the 18th, 8:30 to 9:30. All right. So then each week you will generally see one of these announcements, and I'm not going to go through the details like I will starting next week, because I'm giving you a lot of information about how this whole thing works and how to utilize these things. So week 1, you'll see it tells you what the topic of the week is, crime and the Constitution. And corresponding chapters. Now, chapter 1 and 2 of your textbook. I will also be sending you each week, including this week, a little later. I will email you the PowerPoints that we won't be using during lecture, but will help you in terms of your studies for each week. Chapters 1 and 2 I will send you this week after this lecture. Then there's some topics that will help you, and I'll talk about these during the lecture. Types of law. What is crime? The Fourth Amendment, probable cause, key research terms. And you're going to deal with the Fourth Amendment a little bit here, search and seizure in this class. And then you're going to deal with a practice quiz as well. I encourage you to take that out, and I'll be sharing it with you. And then, once again, someone asked me, where's the link for the class? There it is right here in blue. You can copy and paste that link, and then it brings you right here. Then this is the discussion assignment for the week. Police dogs and warrantless searches. Now, discussion posts are due when? Every Tuesday night from 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and then reply post Saturday. This week is different because you couldn't have provided your discussion posts with week 1 for Tuesday. Therefore, this week and this week only, well, you get to the end of the course, you'll see something different. But your initial post is due Saturday, as well as your reply posts are due Saturday in this course. That's for week 1 now. When we get to week 2, you'll see Tuesdays and Saturdays. The written assignment for this week is elements of criminal law. We're going to elaborate on that in just a few minutes. Written assignments are due every Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and the requirements are found under the Blackboard tab, Lessons tab, and then also in your rubric. And then this is a reminder about the live lecture that we're taking place now. I encourage students to start strong and finish strong and to keep up, because trust me, here's what's going to happen. By the time we finish week 3, which will be in just a couple of weeks, we'll be in the second half of the course. And I will tell students in a minute that if you have not completed and submitted your assignments week 1 through 3, by the time we complete week 4, don't even ask to submit them unless I have previously made arrangements with you. Don't fall behind. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So anyway, adversity is a springboard to success is a statement that is about my life, and I share it with my students so you understand where I'm coming from when I teach this class. I love helping students, but I do not allow students to just get by. I'm pretty tough, but I'm also someone you can work with. If you can't work with me, you probably won't be able to work with any professor, because we have disagreements. But the bottom line is I'm doing it because I know something, and you need to be knowing what I know and maybe more. So let's look at the course calendar so you can see how it works here. So your course calendar is usually at the top. You can get to it, but this is one way. Notice the course calendar. It has everything that you need to know in terms of due dates and times. If you click, people say, oh, it's just a one-liner. Click on it, open it up, and it starts to elaborate on it. Live lecture here, same place. There's another place where you can find the link for how to get to the live lecture, not the recording. And it tells you your due date for reading assignment. Normally that would be Monday, but because we start in the 12th, Wednesday. And then what I told you earlier about your posts, and then your written assignment for even this week, though it's short, is due Sunday. So why does it say 2 true check boxes? It's because one of these check boxes has to do with the live lecture. This is your written assignment, and you'll have more details on this at the rubric. Then this is the live classroom lecture, which you'll be giving me a key phrase. I'll be giving you a key phrase or word so you can get your points. Those are due by the Sunday the 16th. If you are late with them, you will lose the points, just like with other assignments. A point for each day until you finally zero out. And then we start next week, the same thing. But I want to show you how quickly this is. Okay, this is week 1. This is week 2. By the time we finish week 3, we will still be in the month of February. Okay, but when the assignments are due, will be the 1st of March. Now, notice what I said. So then look at that, the second part. So that's week 1, 2, 3. This is week 4. By the time we finish this week, anything that has been submitted from up here will not be accepted, bar none. So now let's go and show you how quickly this course ends. You see, the 20th is the last day of class. So you see what I'm talking about. So trust me, that's why it's important to keep up. So starting with the Sunday, the 16th, and then Monday the 17th, week 2 there, and then you got the 2nd. By the time you get to week 4, you're in March, and there it is again. So you got week 4, week 5, week 6. So by the time you get to the 16th, which is almost a month away, you will be in the last week of classes here. Okay, so the classes end on the 20th. Be aware of that. All right. Now let's go to the course syllabus. The course syllabus you've already been introduced to. It provides information about my name, how to communicate with me, and then this reminder of something that you already see on the course homepage, and that is about APA, cover page, and things of that nature. This explains what the course is, tells what the textbook is, and it sets out the requirements. So you can take time to read this. Now, what I wanted to point out to you about weekly discussion posts, I don't run discussion posts through Grammarly. All right, I stopped doing that a long time ago, because it takes up a whole lot of time in terms of grading it. So I read the content of what you put in there, and I tell you, you will lose points if you have a post that's not thoughtful. For each week module, discussion forum, you expect to post a thoughtful, detailed response. Yes, no, I agree or disagree answers, not sufficient, nor are one-liners. I want you to elaborate on information. So, you need to make sure that you utilize resources, not just the text, but others as well. Citations and references are welcome, but not required, okay? And so you respond with a response to each student's post with a minimum of 1 reply post. All right, and remember I already talked about this, exercise courtesy and proper etiquette when responding to each other's post. I only had 1 student to ever put foul language in a discussion post, and then once I got on them about that, They apologized, and they never did it again. All right. So again, you can see what I was talking about. Week 1 for term 2, initial posts are due Saturday midnight. So are reply posts. But then weeks 2 through 5, the initial posts are due Tuesday night, and then your reply post Saturday, as I said. Except then you get to week 6, there's a different ball game there. All right. We talked about APA already. It is a part of the requirement of this school to ensure consistency, precision for students' instructions. The college has chosen APA style as a standard documentation and citation style to be used in not just this course, but all courses. And it explains the APA format established by the American Psychological Association, and it's used wide. You probably all have heard about it. They're even now starting to use it in grammar school and in high schools as well. Okay. And again, you can learn more about APA in the library resources I already showed you under the resources tab. So these are the assignments. You have reading, you have your discussion posts, you have your practice activities. Don't, just because something is not graded, don't ignore it. It will help you with your grades. It will help you in your quizzes, which you'll see what's going to happen here when it comes to quizzes here. In this course, written assignments, and then the quizzes. Now, there's only 2 quizzes in this course. One is week 3, and that will consist of the first 3 weeks, like I showed you a few minutes ago in the course calendar. So this is kind of like a midterm, and then this one is a contents 4, 5, and 6. So it helps you, all right? And they are timed. They are timed. You get 1 chance at taking the quiz, not 2, 3, 4, 5 times, all right? And then your live lectures you have as well. So then this tells you how everything breaks down. Notice out of 500 points, discussions are almost nearly 1/5 of it, almost. Look at this. This is 2/5, your written assignment. And then your quizzes, there are 2 of them. See how important those are? Now, that right there is almost 500 points. That's almost like 80% of the course. All right? And then your discussion posts, and then your live lectures, because you get 5 points for each day. Remember I said they're due on Sunday. So by the time, if you turn it in on Monday, that following Monday, you're going to get 4 points. And you're going to lose a point each day until you get to 0. So that's how you get, that's how the course is broken down. You don't have to remember, it's right here. Now, I want to say this up front. You see this A down to B minus. This is where I work with students to get you. My goal is to get you up here. But I don't work beyond lower than that. Never, 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 never reach out to me and say, Professor Wright, what do I need to do to get a C in your class? I'm not going to tell you, because I don't do that. C students can do it all by themselves. And never ask me, says, oh, okay, I need to just get a passing to keep my scholarship. Don't think like that, because I'm not going to tolerate it, because of the fact that I don't want you to get into that let's just get by type thing. Because I'm going to tell you, the people who are going to excel, and you're looking at one who in college worked, raised kids, and went through law school and seminary, all of this while raising kids. And I stayed on the honor roll in Dean's List, but you'll hear me talk about that a little later. I didn't have technology like you guys have. I didn't have a car like many of you have. There's so much, the challenges that you will learn. But I learned as a young kid how to deal with challenges. And again, I'll share that with you. So don't ask me about this, okay? And then these are things that I do. I respond very quickly to my students. Transferable skills, we've already talked about that. The attendance policy, I don't worry about that. I do want to talk about the late assignment submission policy. Every day that your assignments are late, you lose 10%. And it tells you up to 7 days. But don't bank on that, because let me show you. If your paper is due on Sunday, and it's a good paper, perfect, satisfies all the requirements, but you submit it Monday, the highest you're going to get is 90. If you submit it Tuesday, the highest you're going to get is 80. If you submit it Wednesday, the highest you're going to get is 70. Look at where you are at 70. You see where you are? You're at C minus. And then when you get to 60, you see what happens. Okay, you're down here. You're flirting with D's. So that's by the 4th day. So that's why I said don't be so, oh yeah, I got up to 7 days. Well, the point of the matter is that I'm just telling you that the key thing is that you're going to be losing these points. Don't even look at me and come to me and say, Professor, in the syllabus it says students may be asked to complete an alternate assignment. I don't do that. I don't do that. Or a student asked me once, how can they get extra credit and they haven't completed the other assignments? How you do something extra? That's just like asking for overtime on a job and you haven't completed the 40 hours. I'm only going to get 38 hours in, but I want overtime. No, you're not. So don't even ask me. I have too many students to do that, and the school won't make me do it either. So in some cases, late assignments, discussion posts, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. You're going to run into a problem. Here we are right here. Online discussions conclude at the end of the week. Discussion posts made after the due date in the discussion post in the current week module will not be accepted, or you won't get credit for it. Now what that means is your initial posts are due, as I said, on Tuesday nights. You'll lose points for each day that they're late. They're not 10%, but I'll take off 1 point. I'm kind of nice about that. But then when you get to Sunday, if you submit both your initial post and your reply post on Sunday afterwards, no points, because this form's over. Because the purpose for discussion posts is to take the place of us getting together in class. All right? So I wanted to make sure you understand that about discussion posts. What I have done, and this is something I do specially, if you submit your discussion posts on time or late, and you get your initial post in by Saturday, and then you post the next day, Sunday, your reply post, you're going to lose points for the late discussion post, the initial post, but then your reply post, you'll lose a point because it was due that Saturday. Not Monday, not any exceptions. Don't tell me, says I couldn't get the discussion post done. You must, I repeat, you must make time to do your discussion post, because that's the interaction between the class. It's just like coming to class a week later if you were in a physical campus and asking to give me, let's discuss what we discussed the week before that. No, we're on something else. I might give a quick review, but I'm not going to spend time elaborating on it. And that's the same thing that you're asking for if you're saying, I want to post a discussion post on Monday after the discussion forum ended for the week before that, you're going to get 0. Now, when we start talking about this 10%, pay attention to this. Not your dean, not your advisor, not even the president of the school can waive the late penalty. Only I, in this class, in case of extenuating circumstances, can waive that. And I've done it. Extenuating circumstances are not, well, I started class, I got here late because we had a vacation planned already. That is not extenuating circumstances. Extenuating circumstances are illnesses, catastrophic things that happen within the family, things that are beyond your control. Like, for example, we have usually during the hurricane season, we have issues with our students down in Florida, Georgia, and in the South area. And we have other issues. There are times when people have trouble with their internet and things of that nature. I'm very sympathetic, but I will not, I repeat, I will not let you get a pattern of practice. I don't want your notes. Don't give me a letter from your doctor. Don't bring me an obituary from a funeral that you went to. I don't want it. I do not want it. And it could be a good friend, but it depends on the relationship that you have. But if it's someone, you know, like I got people that have cousins to the max that will pass, and then they will say they're going through a period of grief. Well, I listen to what the person is saying. I pay attention. Talk to me. Talk to me. Don't. You know, I had one student told me, I can't talk to you. I get nervous when I talk to instructors. I said, shame on you, because I'm one who will work with students. So anyway, if I know about the reason why something is late, I have students that submit assignments a week later, and then they don't tell me when they submit that assignment a week later why it's late. And I'll look at it and I'll say, well, you missed your 7 days. That's over. Nothing I can do. Oh, I didn't tell you what happened. No, tell me contemporaneously with it. Don't come back with it later. You don't go to your employer and tell your employer that you missed a week off because you were sick when you come back. Or if you do, you're not going to have a job. You know that. So you got to be responsible. You are adults, okay? And, you know, you got to operate on that basis. And that's how I treat you, all right? I can be tough, but I'm very real and down to earth, all right? So in some cases, it says activities such as labs must be completed by, we don't have labs. Exams must be completed by the date. And, you know, so make sure that you understand the late assignment policy. All right? And under no circumstances can a student submit work after the last day of the term unless an incomplete grade has been requested and granted beforehand. I don't grant incompletes to students who have done half the work and then they come to the end and realize, they say, oh, no, I'm not going to operate on that basis. I'm the one who has to determine whether or not, and I'm pretty good with doing that. And I can't tell you about incomplete. You have to decide that yourself with your advisors and so forth. Same with medical issues. And so finally, the academic integrity policy, take time to read this. But I do want to point out to you something that you heard in the video, using information charts, using listing an academic exercise and whole purchased or copied from a ghostwriter or paper essay mill. I already told you what I told you about that particular course hero, and there's some others. You will get in trouble with me, and your grades will reflect it. And so take time to read this, all right? So anyway, that's it for the syllabus. So now let's go, and I'll show you each week how the assignments themselves work. So this week, it talks about the topic, and it tells you, what you have to do. Your written assignment this week is elements of criminal law. Now, you got to pay attention to read what the module says. I have students that'll do one scenario or two scenarios or do a very brief one. But you got to pay attention to what the instructions say here. It says you'll be provided with 3 short scenarios. The police officers that responded to these scenarios had to determine which criminal laws have been violated and the elements were met. Read each scenario and then answer the questions that follow within the scenario for each one. And here are the questions, 1, 2, and 3. Notice APA has to be involved in all of them as well. Now, once again, before I get to the rubric, we have the link for help. You saw this earlier, but it helps you with all of these different topics in your assignments. Here we go again. Takes you back to how to get your assignments done. All right? Everything that you need to know. It actually helps you with resources for this course. There's another course I teach, drug and crimes, where a lot of people take at the same time. That course, the lectures will generally be on, I think, Wednesdays, but this week it'll be Friday. But anyway, when you get there. But anyway, the point of the matter is that there are resources there that are guides in each weekly assignment. So now let's go to the rubric. How do you become familiar with the rubric? You click on the assignment, and it tells you your due date, and it tells you that. Now, to view the rubric, it tells you for scenario 1, you get 10 points. For scenario 2, you get 10 points. For scenario 3, you get 10 points. That's a total of 30 points, or 75%. But you got to make sure that each of these are covering. The thing is that each of these should take at least 1 page. One should not be shorter than the other. And the whole thing should be a 3-page minimum length. Could be longer. And I already told you about double space. But pay attention to this. This will not change. Up here will change, but for each week. And then the APA, and then Wikipedia, it says particularly don't use that or other generic sources. All right? And so what will happen is that when you see in your grade book, under each of section, there's a section for comments. I will put comments under if there's a problem. If there's not, I'll just put a check mark and no comments. But you will know the comments. Go look for the comments. Don't just say, oh, I got 50. Why did I get 50? Why did I get 50%? Why did my grade out of the total 40 points total up to 20? Maybe because you got 5 up here. Maybe you didn't do one of these. Or you only got, and that's the point. All right? You can lose 5 points right off the bat by not satisfying APA. And you can end up with 35 points by doing everything else very well. Okay, so so it's important that you pay attention to the rubric. All right, each week I will be covering that. All right, and so now let's go back. And then your live lecture, which it tells you when that is due. If you click on that, it's no rubric, but it tells you it's due the 16th, which is Sunday, which you already know because you saw that on the course calendar. All right. And then, so these are the assignments for week 1. All right. Now, be aware that I will complete your grading by the Friday after you submit them. So your assignments that are due this Sunday, I will do everything I possibly can to have your grades completed by Saturday morning that following week. Or to put it another way, Friday is the 14th, and so by the 20th, by the 21st, your assignments will be graded for week 1, and then that's how they work. Sometimes I'll get them before that, but I have students all the time that say, why does it take the week to do it? Because that's the rule that they give us. They want us to have grades in by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time on Friday nights, and I try to abide by that as much as I possibly can. I had a problem this past quarter because I was sick with the flu. Many of you have had to battle that, and I fell off like a couple of weeks, but I got that all caught up and still working on some of that with some of the classes that are still going on, because your classes just start today for term 2, but term 1 ended yesterday, and I have a 6-week course that's for bachelors, and that course ends this Sunday. But anyway, the point of the matter is that so you'll understand the parameters in terms of grading. Just about done with explaining how each week works. Then I will generally talk about the issues of the objectives. I will talk about these areas like the types of law, what is crime, Fourth Amendment probable cause, and then I will take you through these different key terms and for practice, and then these little practice quizzes. I already talked about these things down here. So I'm not going to do that tonight because we will be here about 3 hours, but because I got to still talk about what I want to share with you at the end. Okay, but you can click on this yourself. And like I said again, we will go through them usually in lectures about the difference between the crimes. By the way, up front, what's the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony? The amount of time that you get. Misdemeanors are up to a year and generally are spent in jail, while felonies go beyond a year and generally is prison. Now, that can vary, but that's so you understand it. So, and the more serious the offense is, the more likely it'll be a felony. All right? So anyway, there's some examples here, and then it talks about jails versus prison. The Fourth Amendment is something that you need to become familiar with. It's a foundational tool, search and seizure, and again, there's a copy of what the Fourth Amendment is, and you can download it as well. And then there are exceptions to the Fourth Amendment, which you're going to be learning about, and I'm not going to go into detail with them tonight, but normally I would. So now you get down here to what I call key terms and things like this every week. And this is how they work. This is to help you. This is not something that it will help you. So you use the flashcards. And then open this up. So I allow it. So you can see it. Here we go. So anyway, it tells you a serious criminal act that is punishable by a fine and or more than 1 year. What is that? What do we call that? I already told you. A serious criminal act that is punishable by a fine and or more than 1 year. What is it? Type in the chat box. Let me see how smart you are. That's it. That's it. And then you go to the next one. And then, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I didn't go over this, but a common exception to the search warrant requirement that permits law enforcement officers to seize obvious contraband if they are legally present when the observation is made. It's called PV, or plain view. The legal components within a statute that must be present or met in order to establish a violation of criminal law. And I'm just going to show you, because we haven't gone over in detail, the elements of the offense. Then you go to the next one. A minor offense that is often associated with a non-criminal traffic violation and punishable with a fine and demerit points assessed against the driver's record. What do we call that? I didn't tell you what it was, but I gleaned through it real quick. What do you think it is? Doesn't talk about jail time, by the way, or incarceration. So what is it? Somebody's already studied. Exactly. Some people, I say, oh, it's a misdemeanor. And so these are, you see how these are little flashcards to help you. All right, so anyway, I'm going to show you the next one. We did everything we could to make this course, make these courses so that you can help yourself. All right, let's go down here. For practice, elements of an offense. You can do the same thing, except here you're going to come with some actual activities. Let's move this over here. Okay. Start the activity. Click the element below that is not, see that capital N-O-T? And a lot of people will miss this. They'll go right to is an element. Is not an element of armed robbery. Which one of these is not an element of armed robbery? Which one is not? Because you would study about what armed robbery is all about. And if I was doing a lecture on it, you would know. But maybe you start to look at the material. What do you think? Just taking a shot at it. Which one of these is not? Enter the dwelling. Any other guesses? Intentionally. Okay, any other guesses? Okay. Let's go with the enter the dwelling first. Let's do enter dwelling. Forgot how to do this. I did these before. Oh, wait a minute, let me clear that. Okay. Let's see what it says. Yep. An armed robbery is intentionally, see, the person taking a property from another with force or threat of force. Armed robbery doesn't typically involve entering the dwelling of another. It can, but it's not a necessary element. Okay, good. Let's do one more. Identify the element of simple battery by selecting the correct answer from each element pair. So you go and you go here. Which one is it? Accidentally or intentionally for simple battery? Okay. Element 2. All of them have to be right to get it right. Causes bodily harm, threatens bodily harm. Which one? Okay, let's use that one. And the third one, to property or to another? Okay. And then finally, with or without consent? Okay, let's see what this says. Correct. Because the simple battery often includes intentional bodily harm, here we go, to another person without their consent. So if you had, for example, selected, well, no, you can't do it. But anyway, if you selected the other one, you would have got it wrong because it has to be bodily harm, not threatened. Then we get to assault. So anyway, I'm not going to go do any more on that one because we're heading toward our time, but we're going to go longer because I'm trying to make sure that you understand. Every week pretty much is going to follow the same thing. So then you got classifications of crime. These are things that I'm just showing you that are right here in the, don't go past, oh, I'm doing the assignment, I'm going to complete it, and I'm going to get my grades. No, you want to get knowledge. Are you in this class because you want to get a good grade, or are you in this class because you want to better yourself for being a criminal justice professional? You don't have to answer that. The answer should be the latter of the two. If you do that latter, the first part will fall into place. But if your reasoning is just for grades, that means then you're going to be a professional student for the rest of your life. Not. Okay. Match the type of crime with the proper crime classification. Driving without seatbelt fastening. Is that a misdemeanor, felony, or an infraction? Any other guess? Okay. Okay, everybody. Okay. Infraction. Okay, it's easy now because it's 50-50. Damage to property with a 30-day jail sentence. I already told you less than a year, it's going to be misdemeanor. And then if you get the last one wrong, that means you don't understand. There's only one left. That's a laugh out loud, okay? Burglary with a sentence of 18 months, which is more than a year, so that automatically goes to felony. Okay, but I'm going to show you something, just so you know. Let's just mess around here. Let's attach that to that and that. Let's see what happens. Watch what's going to happen. Wrong. Okay. Your answer was almost right, and it'll tell you. So I was just showing you. what happens there. And then it'll let you go back and try it again. And so what you do is you go back to this, and then you say, oh, yeah, let me change that around. Let me put felony here, an infraction there. Then you click it, then it's going to say yes. Nice work. So you have a little check and balance. It's okay for you to get it wrong because this is your own time that you're doing. And then the last thing I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to conclude by talking about what I want to talk about. And that is this. The quiz. You do not, look what it says. This activity will help you prepare for your graded quiz, so don't skip it. You're going to hear me say that almost every week. I'm going to keep trying not to say it, but I can't resist the temptation. And it's a non-graded thing, and it's not based on time, though the other one is. So this gives you a feel for your quiz, which I said will happen week 3 and week what? Week 3 and week what? Somebody said 5. Who said 5? Somebody said 6. It's 6 because you have 6 weeks of assignments. It's a 5.5 course, but yes. So one's a midterm basically, and one's a final. So then, but remember though, the final, the way it works here is that it deals with, you meant 6, okay. That remind me of people who checked the wrong box on the multiple choice quiz. I meant to check B, but it was, no, I was thinking A. No. Remember, once you commit it, you got it. I'm messing with you. Don't take it personally. All right. So anyway, practice quiz. Very, very, very important. What are codified misdemeanors and felonies known as? What are they? You're going to learn that in your reading. But what are the codes of misdemeanors and felonies known as? What do we call that of these 4? Any other guesses? Okay. Survey says criminal law. Let me show you something about this, and you should know this already. Usually there are 2 in here that like jump at you and say, yeah, right. What kind of course is this? This is what kind of course? What's the topic? What's the topic of this course? Yeah. So civil law, you should know that's not the answer. Administrative law, you will learn that has to do with pretty much quasi that. Case law, okay, but I said codified, the codes. So yeah, it is. So I'm just showing you how when you take these tests, you can eliminate them. Then I'm going to do this last one, and then I'm going to wrap up. The Fourth Amendment is an example of what kind of law? It's case law. What, anybody else? One says Constitution. Anybody else? Constitutional law. So 2 say constitutional law, 1 says case law. Let's go with the majority. That's correct. The Fourth Amendment is a constitutional law. I showed you that a few minutes ago. I went over it real fast. But the Fourth Amendment is an example of what kind of law. It's not a case law. There's something different there. It's not administrative law. We already discussed that. and it's not civil law. So it's going to be between this and that. So at least that means you cut it in half. But it's more direct. It's the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, search and seizure, not case law. There are cases decided under it. Let's do one more. Burglary is an example of a blank that subjects the offender to potential prison for 1 year or more. Give it to me. Any other guesses? Okay. I can't trick you. Yeah, it is. Because it tells you 1 year or more. And if it was less than a year, it would be misdemeanor. If it was an infraction, it wouldn't involve jail time or any kind of incarceration. Citation could be something that would fit with infraction. But in this case, it gives you 1 year or more. I can't resist it. I got to do one more. But the answer is yes, it is felony. Okay. The last one. It gets to be kind of fun when you start to do it after a while. But let me tell you something. You're having fun, but you're learning at the same time. You're studying, believe it or not. Okay. What level of proof are you going to learn this is necessary in order for police to make an arrest? People get really, really. There's okay. What else? Any other choices? Any other choices? Okay. Nobody else wants to pick mere preponderance? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Mere preponderance means usually what happens in some instances, but it's not in criminal cases. Yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. Somebody correctly said. Reasonable suspicion. What does reasonable suspicion have to do with? Does anybody know? You know what a Terry search is? You don't know yet, but you will find out if you don't know already. Some of you already know. Yay! All right. All right. I got some people in here that know what they're talking about. Probable cause is a standard. Yeah. So that's it, guys. These things will help you. Trust me. I'm telling you. Oh, I already know. No. Test yourself and go through and study the materials. Does anybody have any questions about any of the material that I covered for week 1? That means anything that by the way, there it is again. See that reasonable suspicion thing? See, I went through it real fast. There's Terry versus Ohio. Yes, the stop and frisk, probable cause. I went through there real fast, but if I was going to go through and discuss it, I have not. Okay, let me see. That was too quick. Let me put back up there the chat. I must have not caught it, but how do we get it live? We haven't done it yet. That's why. Yeah. Help him, Carol. Thank you. Okay. Carol has been with me in other classes. I forgot what other class you were in with me. What other class were you with me? Man, Sharon, what other class did we have? We had at least, I think we had more than one, but what other classes? Was Introduction to Corrections one of them? And Drugs and Crime. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That Drugs and Crime course is Pretty intense, isn't it? Brings tears to your eyes. Yeah, yeah. Now, usually students take this and that together, but the point of the matter is that introduction to corrections. By the way, you should know this. Introduction to corrections is now a 5.5 class. It's no longer 11 weeks. You remember that course assignment that you had to do, the course project that you had to do involving prison, probation, parole, or jail? Well, they incorporated that into 5.5, but there's no project like that now. But it's pretty involved. I don't like the rubric though that they gave me, so I'm gonna create my own rubric. That class actually just finished last night, and so. But yeah, it's 5.5 now. So excuse me. So you had fun in the 11-week classes. That was a lot of work. So for the graded quizzes, week 3 and 6, do we get immediate feedback? No. On whether a technically correct answer was selected or are the quizzes being graded by me? No, I don't even grade them. The system grades it automatically. As soon as you finish, it submits itself. So no, I don't even grade them. Okay, no, they got the answers already. And in fact, there are a couple of students that will come back to me inevitably and say, but I think they had the wrong answer. So after you finish the quiz, check. Yeah, that's true. You'll find it in the grade book itself. It'll be right there for you. Now, so your grade book and your quizzes are due. Like for example, week 3 will be due on a Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard, but week 6 will be due that Friday, which is the last day of class. Okay. Carol is very good. Carol, you're gonna be my resource person. So and Carol knows how I roll also. So I thought I saw Gress. Did I see Gress in here? Did I see? Yeah. Okay. Hi. Welcome. Yeah. Gress is another familiar name that I have. Remember, I can't forget that because I always said, man. I said one day I want to meet him for real to see what a Gress really looks like, or either maybe I have you put your face on and see. But yeah, I welcome. So, and by the way, these are people that are not repeating the class. These are people I had in other classes, and actually, both of these students are on my A list. I don't remember whether you got an A or not. Don't even have to say it, but I do know that you're on my A list, which means that you're one of my good students. Unless everybody should be my good students. I don't determine that, you do. So, all right, so we've gone over our time here. So now any other questions? Because every week I'm not going to be spending time like this. I'm just getting it laid out for week 1. Any other questions? Yeah, I will. I'll give it to you, but I'm not going to give it to you right now because it's important that I want people to listen to something that you and Gress already know, but I'm sorry I have to put you through it, but it's something about me that every student should have the benefit of so they can know who Dr. Wright, Professor Wright is and what I stand for. So I'll give it to you. Okay. All right. So anyway, let me share with you guys the reason why I say adversity is the springboard to success. I'll try to get this done within the next 20 minutes to a half an hour, but it's based on real life, and it all started when I was 7 years old, and I was living in Chicago on the west side of Chicago with my father. And I had 5 younger sisters at that time. I was 7 years old in 1957, Memorial Day. My dad and I went to a baseball game, came home. People were celebrating Memorial Day. That was when it used to be celebrated on the 30th and not the last Monday of the month in May as it is now. And we came home, and us kids were put to bed, and we all were in one room. I had 5 younger sisters at that time, and we were all in bunk beds and laying in different directions. And sometime that evening, a commotion broke out in the house, a fight. And the fight ended up in the bedroom where us kids were laying and sleeping. Well, it was my father and a guy who was a roomer in the house, who my mom and dad allowed to rent a room. Anyway, someone flicked on the lights, and I saw the man take out a knife, and he stabbed my dad in the forehead. And my dad died. I never seen so much blood in all my life. By the way, I won't forget all of this stuff because I have what we call a photographic memory, which means I remember good things as well as bad things. So anyway, oh, okay. Well, the story gets even more challenging as I continue on. So the guy didn't go to jail. He ended up living in the house with us openly now, and he was taking the place of my dad sleeping, which I would find out, by the way, years and years later. The reason why my dad was killed in the first place was because he confronted him, because it turns out that my mom was having an affair with this guy, and it was her who turned the lights on, and it was her who also said that my father was the aggressor, which wasn't true, but they wouldn't, the oldest kid in the room was me, and they wouldn't call me as a witness, or they didn't ask me. So anyway, he began living in the house with us, sleeping with my mom openly then. So from 57 to 62 in that house, we went through domestic violence where my mom was beaten at the hands of this guy. I mean, he would beat her so profusely that her face was disfigured. But she would, he would get arrested. She'd go back and get him, bring him back home. And we lived through that. It was really, 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 I mean, it was so frequent that the police were at our house, seems like every weekend. I used to hate to see weekends come. I'd want to get out of the house because to go to visit family and other friends, it was that bad. So between that period, he also fathered 2 girls with my mom. Therefore, I had 7 younger sisters. So by this time, I'm 12 years old, and the area gets pretty bad, and there are gangs there, and the gangs were the Vice Lords and Cobras. They did something really unusual. They knew about what happened with my family, and it was back in those days when the gangs, they operated differently than they did now. What changed it was drugs and so forth that came in that years and years later changed the way gangs operated. But back in those days, they would recruit you, but it was a different kind of thing. So they decided not to recruit me, and that I was hands off. And when something was going down, they always say, get out of here, shorty. Well, my mom made the decision, even though that was happening, to move us out of the area. I was in 6th grade, and this was in 62. And we moved from there to an area in Gary, Indiana. When Gary was really nice, we moved into a community. By the way, we owned the house that we lived in. It was a 2-flat. We lived on the 1st floor and rented out the top floor to people. So we ended up moving into Gary, a single-family house. And in May of 62, we moved. June, right after school was out. And my aunt came from Michigan, and my aunt was kind of like the character that Tyler Perry created called Medea. And this guy didn't do anything. He didn't challenge her because she carried a pistol in her purse. So I was around some pretty hectic stuff, guys. So at any rate, my aunt stayed with us at the house. And by the way, this was the first time I had my own bedroom. And my sisters shared 2 other bedrooms. But at any rate, my aunt left, I guess probably around about early May of '63. And she decided to go back to Michigan to where her husband was and stay there. So anyway, Memorial Day of 1963, my mom left the house, and by this time I had turned 13. My birthday is May 3rd, so I turned 13 May 3rd, 1963. And my mom telling me to take care of the house, be in charge of everything. And my baby sister, she was very, very, very little because she was born in '62, March of '62. So she was just a little over a year. So anyway, my mom left that Memorial Day to go to a restaurant that she and my cousin had downtown Gary. And she left with this guy. His name was Webster Scott. And she never married him, but he was the guy that, ended up, that killed my dad. So anyway, we woke up. I woke up early the next morning. My mom, her bed hadn't been slept in, but that wasn't unusual because she would be gone like that. And then what woke me up was smoke in the house. There was, and I found out that someone had left some barbecue in the oven. And so I looked outside, and when I let the doors and windows open to get the smoke out, and my sisters were all asleep, and I saw the car pull away that my mom and Scott had together. So I went about my business, as usual that day. Woke up, and we were all together in the living room. I had, everybody had eaten the cereal or whatever we were going to eat that day for that morning. And at some point, 2 gentlemen showed up at the door, identified themselves as Gary police officers, and they announced that my mother was found dead in Chicago. I lost it. I started yelling this man's name, Scott, 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 but I quickly had to get a grip on myself because I realized this is it. All they had is me. And so shortly after that, my aunt, not the one from Michigan, but another aunt came and said we were going to come stay at her house temporarily, and said we were going to be there, and then they were going to decide what they were going to do with us, but that the plan was to send us each in various different places. So it was rough living in that house in Chicago, the South Side, in '63. In fact, it was so rough that I went to my mom's wake, and I saw her body, and I lost it. I couldn't even go to the burial or to the funeral, so I never was there for that. I missed that. But anyway, it was tough, guys. The aunt didn't want us there. She turned us into servants. I had to pull weeds with my fingers, and her kids were able to go to Y and do Little League and do all kinds of things. So it was pretty bad. So then the aunt from Michigan came back when she heard about what was going to happen, and she announced that we weren't going to be split up. So keep in mind now, I had gone through school. I was in school, transferred to Chicago, and going to a school called Dixon in the Chatham area. That doesn't mean anything to you outside Chicago. But anyway, it was challenging, and it was pretty bad. And so my mom was gone, my dad was gone, I was living with my aunt. And then the other aunt came back, and she said she was going to have a house built, and she was taking all of us. Then we weren't going to be split up. And so she had a house built in '63. In '64. We moved out of my aunt's house, and we moved into this newly constructed house in Chicago, further south, in an area called Maple Park. And again, now at this time, I had my own bedroom, and my aunt and her husband. However, it became pretty bad there because her husband, number one, wanted me to take his name, and I said I didn't want to do that because I was the only one who could carry on the name of my dad, because the girls, I had 7 younger sisters, would probably, go on. But this man was so tenacious with me, we didn't get along. He refused to help me do a lot of things. So I stayed out of the house a lot. I became involved at the church in the area, and I took a job. I had a paper route, and then I took a job to work at McDonald's as well after school. In the meantime, let me back up. So while living in that house in '64, when we first moved there, 2 things happened to me. First of all, number one, it was brought to my attention that Scott had pled guilty to killing my mother, and he said it was self-defense. I saw all this in paperwork years and years later. But at any rate, he was sentenced to 10 years for killing my mother. But back in those days, 10 meant 5 for good behavior. And then in prison, he would serve 3.5 years for good behavior. So the sum total that this man would end up getting for killing 2 people would be 3.5 years. Let that soak in. So I'm 14 years old, and I'm already going through a lot with the uncle. And my aunt was letting, he was head of the house. So anyway, the truth of the matter is that I found out, I says, this is unfair. What happens? How did this happen? And no one would answer for me. Then finally someone said, these people called lawyers. They're the ones who deal with that. Well, I made up my mind that I would find out more about lawyers. So I went to school. The librarian at the school, I was in 8th grade by this time. And I asked if there was a book on attorneys and lawyers, and they had one little book. And I asked, could I check it out? And I took that book home, took that book and read it cover to cover. And the next day, anybody I met, I introduced myself. I said, my name is Richard Wright. I says, and I'm going to be a lawyer. As soon as I said that, immediately opposition came from family members talking about how challenging it was, how I didn't really have what it took to get this done. The aunt who told us she was going to split us up, she tried to discourage me, along with many others. But I am one of these kind of people that I didn't disrespect them, but I didn't. When I'm going to get something done, I get it done by any means necessary. I mean, people say that's attributed to Malcolm X. Well, that's a statement that he made, and Spike Lee uses it as well. But I had that when I was a kid as an attitude that I was going to get it done, but not illegally or anything like that. So at any rate, I began having other problems with my uncle, and there was a lady I heard on the radio, and I liked her voice, so I went and found her and asked her to be my mother, and she and I became friends. Well, I will just spin ahead a little bit. Years later, and that was when I was 34 years old, she had been in my life all those years from 14, so that was 20 years. She legally became my mother, even at 34. That's a whole nother discussion, but by this time I was a practicing lawyer and so forth. But anyway, let's go back to 14 years old. So this kid having all these problems, getting involved in the community and so forth. And so I had decided that I was going to become an FBI agent and get my education that way. And I went to high school. I graduated. The lady was Her name was Mary D. She was actively mentoring me and was close to me. And anyway, my aunt, who was my mother's sister, who we were living with, said I had mental problems and that I had imagined that my father and mother were killed, but they were actually away because they were trying to keep it a secret. But anyway, I couldn't hold that. So came to a point where I got involved with spending a lot of time at my friends' homes where they had fathers and mothers, and it was, they had structured dinners and all kinds of things. So I ended up having what they call surrogates. And so the church itself saw what I wanted to do. It was called Maple Park Methodist, United Methodist Church. And the pastor came along with one of their heads to meet with my aunt and uncle and told them that I was being offered a 4-year scholarship to go to college. All they had to do was sign. He wouldn't sign. He said, "You're not going to take my name? I'm not signing." Well, I said, "Okay, don't worry about it. I appreciate it. I'm going to do it myself." I announced then that when I became a graduate from high school, which would be in 1969, I turned 19 in May, graduated in June, that I would move out of the house. I didn't know exactly where I was going then or any of that. But one of my friends who was part of that church, his mom and dad got to know me, and they agreed to let me come and stay at their house when I graduated, and that's what I did. So I shared a room with my 2 friends who became like brothers to me, and I ended up being helped by going to start classes at a city college, junior college, at night. And I would take 2 buses and an L, So, okay, then you'll have to listen to the rest of it on the video when it comes out, though. But anyway, what I was going to tell you is this: is that I ended up in a situation where the mother of the people where I was staying had a friend in a law firm downtown, got me a job as a messenger in a law firm. So I was on my way, working in the mailroom. And I went to this big Jewish law firm. And I introduced myself when I got there and told them who I was and I was going to become a lawyer. So here I was working in the mailroom. Well, then after that, I did something. The young lady I was dating, she and I got married, and I was 19. No, I was 19 because I was going to be 20 coming up in 1970, but we got married in March of 70. And she graduated that June, so we had to keep it a secret because she would have been kicked out of school. So anyway, we ended up announcing it publicly in June of that year that we had been married. And I moved with her mom for a little while, and then we got our first apartment. We didn't have nothing but a mattress, and then they had a table in that place. They had a refrigerator and stove in there, and it was the 2 of us. Well, how many of you know that it wasn't long before it wasn't just the 2 of us? In 71, here comes the first one. The second one comes in 72. In the meantime, at the law firm, they began to see that I, was meaning what I said. I was on the honor roll and dean's list. I was studying on the L train and on the buses, and I was carrying books in those days. They were heavy books. We didn't have digital stuff, and so I ended up being on the honor roll and dean's list. So the first 2 kids were born were girls, and so at any rate, by 72, I had 2 girls. So it was time for me to transfer from the city college, junior college, to go to a 4-year institution. I ended up going to Roosevelt University at night, and I took classes on Saturdays. So I went through a lot of challenges, even getting my education done, but I stayed on the honor roll and dean's list. In the meantime, the law firm promoted me from a messenger to a file clerk. And then sometime after that, something happened to the law librarian, and they asked me if I'd be interested in the job, and I became the law librarian. As you can see, I'm moving closer to where I wanted to become. In the meantime, I wasn't making a whole lot of money, and so my wife and I were both in school. She was studying to be a teacher, and I was taking pre-law, which ultimately, when I went to Roosevelt, turned into political science, minor in accounting. And so I found myself in a situation where I was moving forward. So in the meantime, at the law firm, they began to find out that I knew how to not just file books away, but I taught myself how to do legal research manually, because there were no computers that for us to use. And then they decided to turn me into what today is called a paralegal, and they hired someone to take care of the books. And I used to go to court, and I used to go to, they did a little criminal stuff, so I did all this stuff. Real estate, I did everything. I got a chance to meet the founder of McDonald's, and he mentored me for a while. So I had a lot of things that was going right for me. In the meantime, it came time for me to decide what I was going to do. I had to take the law school admission test, the LSAT. I didn't do too well with it because I had trouble with those standardized tests. But I knew I wanted to go to one school for law, and that was Northwestern University School of Law. Many of the lawyers that I worked with went to University of Chicago or the elite law schools in the country, Harvard, Yale, UCLA, and other top law schools throughout the United States, Georgetown, George Washington. So I ended up setting my sights on Northwestern. I was told that you should apply to 3 schools. Well, what I said is I'm applying to the one I'm going to. I wasn't arrogant or cocky, I was just confident. So I ended up applying to Northwestern University School of Law. Now, when I sent my package over, instead of sending the 6 pages, I sent a big, big package. And in that thick package, it contained information about yours truly. And so I had been told and read in the material that they didn't do personal interviews because they had thousands of people applying for 250 seats. They had probably about upwards of almost 10,000 people submitting applications for that 250 seats. But I said, I'm going to get one of those seats. So they invited me to come, and they wanted to see who was behind that package that was sent. And I sat in a room, and I was interviewed for a few hours, it seemed like, with these 4 people. And then they decided to deliberate, and they came back and they says, well, we like things that we learned about you. Wow, we think you're going to really be successful, but we don't make decisions like this, operating on this. There are other criteria that we consider. They said, but what we will tell you is that we are impressed by you, and we believe that you probably be a good candidate. However, what we're going to do is send you some correspondence in the next few weeks that you might like. Well, that was their informal way of telling me that they were going to take me into the school. So I did. I got accepted into the law school, and I started classes in the class of 75. I graduated from Roosevelt University, by the way, that same summer. My wife, at that time, she graduated from Chicago State University with a degree and started teaching in the Chicago public schools. Well, the first year of law school, I was told that I couldn't work. So I left the law firm, and I had to give all of my time to my studies. And the only income we had was the teaching job that my ex my first wife had at that particular time. So what ended up taking place was I found myself in a situation where I had another challenge here. But how many of you know that challenges don't bother me, that I continue to thrive even with challenges? And there's much more. I'm doing a book about my life, and one day you'll see the whole story. But at any rate, I found myself in a situation where I was able to. By the way, back up. Remember, I said I wanted to be an FBI agent. When I was in high school, I applied to FBI, but I was rejected, and I found out the reason why is because J. Edgar Hoover was rejecting minorities and women summarily. So that was the end of that. So that's why I ended up going the route that I did. So I stayed in Chicago and went to school at night. And so anyway, I was doing pretty good at the law school. And then all of a sudden, a teacher strike came, and the teachers strike, that took away all our income. So here we were with these two little ones. And then we lost the ability to be able to pay the rent. The landlord worked with us, but not ComEd. They turned off the lights, so I had to study by candlelight. Didn't have much money to buy food, so we had canned goods and stuff. The gas was turned off, so it was pretty cold in the winter there, but we stayed. Stuck it out. Sent the kids to their grandmother's house. So anyway, it became so challenging that I told one of my professors that I was going to take a leave and leave school. She said, before you do that, come see me. Took me, and I met with her in her office. It was Joyce Hughes. She's working there still right now, even. She said to me, have a seat. And she stood in front of the door and told me I wasn't going to leave the room till I agreed to stick it out. She would do everything she could to help me. She says, focus. She says, I couldn't help you financially. But anyway, the bottom line was I took her up on it. And then 3 years later, of course, 1978, I graduated from Northwestern University School of Law, as you saw that picture. Anyway, in between that time, I met a gentleman who was one of my classmates. By the way, I worked during the summer months at the law firm. I went and worked back with them, but during the first year. The second year, I worked a little bit while I was still in school. And then, of course, in my senior year, I did a lot of work with them. So at any rate, the point of the matter is that they were doing corporate law and things of that nature. So here's the problem. So the problem came about that when I was at the school, that one of my classmates introduced me to his dad, who was a distinguished criminal defense lawyer who would later become a judge. And Eugene Pencham was his name, Judge Pencham. He taught me how to be a good trial lawyer. But he made a suggestion to me. He says, if you want to learn about the criminal justice system, which he understood because he learned my story when I was at his house. And I was very transparent about it. And so he ended up recommended I become a criminal defense lawyer. So I started saying, okay, that's what I was going to do. So I left the law firm in 1980 to start my own practice after working with some attorneys. I didn't like their ethics. I started doing radio, created a show called Know Your Rights that was spelled with a W, R-I-G-H-T-S, advising people. I was on 3 radio stations. And so my career was taking off. So anyway, in the meantime, my first wife and I began to go in different directions. By this time, we had a third child who was born the same year I graduated, 1978. And she ended up being the baby with that first wife. And my wife and I, as I said, went in different directions. So I ended up going 91 to 93 into seminary became a minister as well. So I found myself in the situation where I was practicing law, doing real well, representing people in criminal cases. I was doing really good. And so I found myself in a situation where I continued to also become a minister. I found a young lady, I married her, my second wife. Found out she and the pastor were carrying on, so she and I went separate ways. But she and I have a daughter who's 29 years old, who I don't have any activity with because her mom took her out of my life. So I went through those challenges too as well. So in the meantime, I announced in 2000 that I was retiring from being a lawyer to work more in ministry. And I started running some businesses. And then finally, I met a young lady and at a bookstore, Christian bookstore, and she and I became friends. And we got married in 1994, and we've been married now, and that's her on the picture you saw. It was 25 going on 26 years, 26 years as of July of this year coming up. So in the meantime, I found myself in 2011 being asked by somebody if I was interested in teaching, because I had taught special education, I had run a janitorial company, I had done closings in real estate for people and all kinds of stuff after I had decided to retire. Well, they brought to my attention this school called Rasmussen, and I said, I never heard of it. So I did my research, and I found out that one of the chairmen of the board of directors was the former president of Northwestern University, not the School of Law, but the university, chairman of the board, Dr. Benian. And that was enough for me. So I interviewed for the position, which was residentially. In October 2011, I was hired to teach business law, and I began teaching it, but I let the dean know right away that I was a criminal justice person. And so I stayed working with them as what they call an adjunct professor, where every quarter, and those were 11-week quarters back in those days, they were residentially, and my money would get cut. So it was pretty tough. Finally, in 2014, an opening came for the state program coordinator of the School of Justice Studies, as I had been working in the School of Justice Studies, teaching many students from that point in 2012 on. So 2014, I applied for the position, and I, of course, got the position. And I ended up with responsibility for the criminal justice program in Illinois, covering all 4 campuses in Illinois, the Romeoville campus, the Mokina campus, the Aurora campus, and the campus in Rockford. And so I stayed doing that role and started teaching 3 classes. By the way, they then moved the classes from residential to online, and I had to learn how to do that. And so I did it. I continued working with that. So I found myself in a situation where it was a real challenge to switch over into learning how to teach online classes, but I became adept at it. About 2015, almost 2016, they changed the role from state program coordinator and turned me into professor, associate professor, and I had a full-time job teaching 5 classes. And since that time, I teach 5 classes. And so I continued reaching out to students, sharing what I've shared with you today, encouraging students. I have connected with students through Facebook, which, by the way, if you want to be my friend on Facebook, you can find me at Richard Wright JD, which I'll type in, and you could send me a friend request, and then I will accept it. And so I have many students and connected with former students. And so I found myself working and doing with Rasmussen, and I have continued to enjoy my job teaching, helping students to understand what adversity is a springboard to success is all about. I left a whole lot of other stuff out, but the fact of the matter is you understand that what I am committed to doing is this. I teach students from three perspectives: to be educated, professional, and ethical. And that's how I roll. And that's what I expect of each of you. I'm here to be with you, to help you. And so we will make this together. So anyway, I'm going to adjourn. But before I adjourn, I want to let you know that challenges shouldn't drive you away. They should strengthen you and give you the ability to be able to grow. And that's what I expect. Again, I'm very empathetic, and I love my students. I connect with my students. I remember their names. And it's funny, I've only, some of the students I've met face to face. I've mentored students from Florida that I met one young man. I surprised him by showing up at his graduation last year. He almost fainted. But the point of the matter is that that's how I am. And he was one who's in some of these classes that I taught before, this quarter and the quarter before. So let's get this done together. Let's work together. The key word that I want to give you for today is adversity. That's it. Give me that word, and you'll get your points. And so with that, I'm going to say good night to you. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. In the meantime, as soon as I terminate this session, I will be emailing you the PowerPoints for this week. And like I said again, each week you will get them at the beginning of the week. So good night. Thank you for sticking out with me tonight. A little long again, but thank you again, Carol and Gress. And I know that there was another student here who had to leave, and I know that I think it was Faith. Anyway, I'll see you guys next Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard with week 2. In the meantime, if you need me, you know what the rule is in terms of reaching me. So I'm going to say good night.